Saurabh, I start with your first take on what you made and what are the key highlights for you as far as this budget's concerned.
I think this is a very different budget to what we've seen in the last 5 years. I think this is a decisive change in direction from NDA. This is the first budget in 5 budgets. The capex growth is as little as 10%. Historically, last 5 budgets has been 30%, so big pullback in capex growth. And correspondingly, this is the first time in 5 years that the RevEx growth, revenue expenditure growth, which finances subsidies, that's growing in double digits after 5 budgets. So decisive change in direction away from capex towards revenue expenditure. Obviously, as has been extensively commented, epic tax break for the middle class, something like 80,000-90,000 rupees in the pockets of middle class people will go a long way towards reviving consumption, which has been flagging in our country. And what was also interesting, leaving aside these sort of headline changes, what was also interesting was the emphasis on pro-poor, pro-SME. This is very similar to what the NDA had done in its first term, which I thought was the most constructive 5 years of NDA. NDA first term was doing terrific work. I think this looks like a return to NDA 1 rather than NDA 2, which I thought was a very different government. NDA 3, I think, has taken the message from the 2024 elections, which is look after the poor, look after the middle class. That's where the vote banks are.
You know, a lot of things announced with respect to the aquaculture segment as well. You know, there's government efforts to streamline the shrimp exports. There's custom duties which are being reduced. There's financial support to fisheries as well from the NABARD. There's policy incentives with respect to, you know, duty cuts with a lot of products like frozen fish paste, etc. Which of these stocks tend to benefit from this? Which of these companies in the listed space are benefiting the most from all of these initiatives taken?
I think this sort of micro tinkering, I wouldn't lose too much sleep about that. That sort of micro tinkering is in a way the legacy of our socialist era, where the government messes around with sort of small rule changes. At least I, as an investor, I'm not going to lose too much sleep about that because it's simply futile. There's so much else happening in the world's 5th largest free market economy. For us to sit here on budget day and invest on the back of micro tinkering by the government, I think is doesn't make any sense. Focus on the big picture. The big picture is a decisive change in direction from the NDA, away from an emphasis on capex towards a focus on pro-SME, pro-poor, and consumption. I would say focus on that. If you want to invest on the back of the budget, focus on the big structural themes in the budget rather than the nitty-gritty about shrimp farmer ke liye kya kiya and shipbuilding ke liye kya kiya and all of that. That doesn't work. It's too big an economy for us to drive.
Sure, Saurabh, point taken. I wanted a better understanding. So a lower fiscal deficit. At the moment, the capex number at what we are seeing right now, and of course, we've seen some sort of tax relief for the population at large. How is the government managing to balance this? How is it that they're going to, come through and execute on all these fronts?
Absolutely. I think the fiscal maths is actually, it adds up. I was doing the fiscal maths over the last couple of hours. The fiscal maths adds up. They're basically budgeting for around 13-14% growth in receipts, which I think should be doable. And they're budgeting for around 10% growth in expenditure. Thus, the deficit gets pulled back to 4.4%. That should give the government a little bit of wriggle room to nudge the RBI towards rate cuts. The country needs rate cuts, even though the rupee is under pressure. The borrowing ecosystem, both SMEs and the middle class, need rate cuts. So the fiscal space, the budget creates fiscal space on the back of pretty solid mathematics to nudge the RBI towards the direction of rate cuts. But what's very interesting is the massive dividend from the RBI. The small print suggests, I think it's a 2.4 lakh crore dividend from the RBI. And then again, I find it very interesting. In spite of this windfall from the RBI, the government has chosen to pull back capex quite significantly, pull back capex growth rather quite significantly. So maths adds up. Room for rate cuts from the RBI, and hopefully in the next couple of months, the RBI gets the rate cutting cycle underway. It's, I think, desperately required.